Be good. It's good right now. We're outstanding. Look working the controls. Oh man, I know that guy. So well, it is. No issues. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Crew. And Will, if you can, celebrate Dr. Crew real quick for all of his hard work here at Williams Memorial. Now, um, let me go on record as saying you have to be very mindful about, as my dad would tell me, how you act everywhere you go, because you never know who you're around or who's watching or who's looking. So as a undergrad there at the Fort Valley State University, I was I really was just doing college life. I didn't think, oh man, some 20 years later, Crew and I would be doing any ministry work together. So I hold in my hand copy of When Wait Your Turn Means No Turn at All. This is the primary work that we will be utilizing for this particular workshop. For this sure. Is it okay if I take this off? Or is someone zooming in? Or okay, all right. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can find the best. All right, this is good. So I'm just going to kind of stand stationary here. When Wait Your Turn Means No Turn at All. If you are online, you can go on to www.jci3ministries.com and grab a copy. You can go to Amazon and grab a copy if you'd like. But I have 10 copies here with me that are for purchase. If you would like to, if you'd like to grab a copy, I'd be more than happy to sign said copies today. So this is what we're after. Let's begin with last night. Kirk Franklin had a reunion tour concert in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, via social media, that a number of people I went to undergraduate school with were in attendance, singing the songs. They knew the words. They were singing along. They hold their phones up. They're recording it, right? They're sick because this Melodies from Heaven they were our Clark sisters. They were our Richard Smallwood. They were our Andre Crouch. Kirk Franklin is our Andre Crouch. Is that you all were the heretic for things like Precious Lord, Take My Hand. Does that ring a bell? Right? Then it big choir as Milton Brunson, Clark Sisters, Andre Crouch, and so many others. And so now us, Kurt is the gospel fabric of our childhood, our adolescence. And here's what I really want to drive home at the very beginning of this. Millennials, yes, we are young. And inside of When Wait Your Turn Means No Turn at All. We know that some people are like, okay, what's a millennial? How do you designate each one of the So, millennials born in the years 1981 to 1996. Here's what loyal to institutions, but they are institutions based on merit. They're optimistic. They're ambitious. They're tech savvy, not tech dependent like Generation Z. Tech dependent. You meet somebody born between the years 19 and you take their phone from them, they are people. Does that make sense? They are tech dependent. We are tech savvy. We are attention and eager to collaborate. So, why is this important? It's important to you because millennials are the largest generation of people born in the country of the United States of America. It used to be what group? Baby boomers. Now, baby boomers, lift your hand if this is you. Born in the years 1946 to 1964. Good. Optimistic, ambitious. Does that sound familiar from the other? Hopeful for a better world, filled with high levels of skepticism, especially skeptical. It used baby boomers, and now there was a service where the pastor said, Parents' Day, everybody who's a grandparent, please stand up. Over half of the congregation stood up. That's an indicator that there is a problem in the congregation. And what would that problem be? If half of the people parents, that mean your children aren't there. And some there. Now, we can go to the slides, please. Can I use one of the sure. Good. So, millennials, we grew up in an environment where we were given choices about everything. Hey, where do you guys want to go for summer vacation? Hey, what do you guys want to eat for dinner? Boomers didn't get that choice. Silent and Greatest Generation didn't get a choice on what are we going to eat for dinner. There were depression periods and years where you were glad you got to eat. There were periods of time where eating a good dinner was at a premium. So there was no real, hey, what do you guys want to eat? Gen Z is relational. So what I'd have to tell them is Jesus is the friend you never had, but you'll never lose. Because they want somebody they can relate to. They want a friend in Jesus, not just the hymn, what a friend we have in Jesus. And there's nothing wrong with hymns, because think about it this way. Legitimately, if you listen long enough to millennials, especially the church ones like myself, we know them. We love God. We've just broken up with the church. And what we're talking about today is y'all want to make up, we want to make up, all the churches that we know of want to make up with the millennials. We want to make up with y'all. We want to make up with church too. Think of it this way. Go to the next slide. Can we admit that we each struggle with the sovereignty of God in different ways? Thank you. Watch this, sir. Here's how millennials struggle with the sovereignty of God. How is it that God's so great, yet global pandemic wipes all of these people out? But it's not new. The oldest book in the Bible, Job, would tell you it's not new. I'm going to introduce you to this term. Not introduce you. I know you probably heard it. Y'all have a great, studious pastor. Can y'all repeat after me? Theodicy. Theodicy is the ongoing quest to answer the question, why do good things happen to bad people? 45. And why do bad things happen to good people? That's the theodicy. That's the thrust of the book of Job is, okay, if Job is so great, why do all these bad things happen? And this isn't even in my notes, but here's the best part about Job. Take this home with you. Here's the assurance each and every one of us have that Job had. Every single imp, demon, spirit, every single trial and opposition that you face in your life had to get approved by God first. Every single one of those things had to go across God's desk and get a stamp of you can do that. It's right there in the, can we agree? It's in Job. He says, hey, listen, God, can I bother Job? Because that's essentially what he said. And every single day, Satan and these imps come and say, hey, can we bother you and me? So, do we all want the black church to survive and thrive? You wouldn't be here if you didn't. You wouldn't. You got better things to do, right? You would not be here if you did not want the black church to survive and thrive. Can we all play a role in that success? An emphatic yes. Yes, you can. Can we admit that we have some preferences and churched understanding? Remember last time, and if you weren't here, I'll tell you again. Church has a language, right? I'm Baptist. Church has a language. At any point in service, you know what we can say? Amen. Doesn't matter. It could be any sort of pause. If you ever hear quiet in a Baptist church, you'll hear somebody yell out, amen. Because somebody's taking too long to shuffle these papers or get up to the announcement stand or whatever it is, right? If you're Pentecostal, they don't even say hello, right? They walk up to the, praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, right? How are you doing? Blessed and highly favored. But that's church understanding. What's also church understanding? This is a church understanding. This is a CME, an AME church understanding. You already know what this is. You already know why it's here. But if I've never been churched, and there's a growing number of people my age and younger who are unchurched, when we walk in and we kneel down not knowing it's not the right time, or we haven't sung the right hymn, or it's not that part in the service, now if they come in and kneel down to pray, what are you going to do? You know somebody in your church is going to do what? Have they explained why? No. They simply told him, we don't do, get up. Or if they're loud, on the cushion. Right. Hey, or stand by me, kneel by me. Because I remember I wasn't bad, just mischievous. That's a long. And I always had some older, usually mother of the church, right? Come over, just come sit by me, come stand by me. Because if I'm standing on this, I'll never forget. My father was a deacon, and he'd go and fix the lights and stuff like that. Now, here's what I would do. I always wanted to do my favorite Reverend Talbert impression. So when he was there, right, he'd be there on a Wednesday. I'm standing behind the pulpit. I'm on a milk crate saying the things I hear him say every Sunday. He died. Then I'm Baptist. Y'all know what we say every week. One Friday, he died. Then he died. I know he died, but early, right? And Reverend Talbert comes in. I think I'm caught. Sir, I think I'm in trouble. And he was like, because it was a Wednesday, it was a Thursday. My dad hadn't even turned the PA system on. I'm just standing there impersonating him. Every Sunday from then until maybe I was 13, every Sunday, I was in his office after service, and he was explaining to me, not knowing I was going to preach. He was explaining to me, okay, young brother Core, we don't say he died just because that's the thing we say. Here's the salvation message. He explained, because my question was, why every Sunday? Sir, every single Sunday. I can already predict. It doesn't matter if you start in Habakkuk, Zephaniah. At some point, you're going to say, but there is another, right? Born in Bethlehem. He's like, oh, okay. Hey, Mom, go ahead and get your purse together. It's almost that time. Next slide. Why millennials? We are the last drug church generation, and we understand the better benefits of the church. We're the last kids that it was strange to be given a choice to go to church. We're the last generation that people drugged to church. Here's what happened. Silent had boomers and said, I'm not going to do to them what my folks did to me. And boomers had Gen X and said, I'm not going to what my parents did to me. And then boomers and Gen X had millennials, and they said, we're not going to do to y'all what our parents did to us, which was make y'all go. It was an anomaly. When my friend said, my mom asked me, did I want to go to church? I said, she asked you what? Do you want to go? Wow. Did she ask you on a weekday? Because, I'm like, okay. Did she ask you on a weekday? No. She asked me on Sunday. I said, ooh. Did she ask you about the afternoon service? No. Afternoon service. Where they do that at? Final drug generation. And we understand the better benefits of the church. Now, there's a section inside this book where I say the church parking lot, here's what it used to be. It used to be the internet. You want to find a dentist? Go to the church parking lot. You want to find a good doctor? Go to the church parking lot. You wanted to find a wife. One of the mothers in the church knew where all the single women were, knew who all the single men were, and started matchmaking. It was the internet. You needed a mechanic, shade tree or otherwise. As soon as the benediction's over, hey man, my car is making this strange noise. Oh man, Deacon such and such. It was the yellow pages. It was Tinder. It was Plenty of Fish, right? The church park, the black church. If you needed a scholarship to go to school, you know where you went? Church. Because somebody in there went to the school you wanted to go to. Man, my kid really want to go to Payne. Okay. I know. Well, such and such and such and such. Well, brother, whoever is the president of the local alumni chapter, they can get you some money. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? We're the generation that understands the better benefits of the black church. We have the opportunity, friends, if you'll trust us, to decode and translate forward and backward. Here's what that means. We understand boomer. We speak boomer. We had the chance to unmute silent generation grandparents and great-grandparents. Why? Because at some point you get old enough, you say what you want to say. And this kid asks you, hey, why do they do blah, blah, blah? Well, baby, and they'll tell you. I'll never forget, I was in the car after church. My grandmother, who is now passed on, she died at 102 years old. She was born in 1916 in Lee County, Georgia, on a farm. I asked her, why in the world does this preacher say, ain't he all right? Because I know what all right means. I've been to school a little bit. I'm in like 3rd, 4th grade. ALRIGHT means mediocre. It's all right. She said, Lord have mercy, baby. The preacher is not saying God is all right. He's saying God is all, A-L-L, right. In all of God's ways, God is right. Don't ever tell nobody that you thought that it was mediocre. Don't tell nobody else that. But I didn't know. And if I asked, she didn't know, then we're both confused and we're just going through the motions. And I think that might be a part of the issue we have inside of black churches. We got at least one generation that does not know why we do what we do. We line hymns. I just thought they were singing slow until I found out it was illegal for us to learn how to read and write. So the preacher or the deacon was the only literate person in the congregation. So I got to line you the hymn so that we can do what black people do, and that's collectively worship. I got to say, what a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. What a friend. Why? I'm sitting there like, why are y'all singing this so slow? It's because I can read. It's not illegal for me to read. I'm reading it in the hymnal like it's supposed to be. Does that make sense? So now we have at least one generation that does not know why we do what we do, and another generation that ain't telling nobody. We know, but we're not telling them. We're not telling them because they're not wearing the right thing. We're not telling them because they don't come consistently. Amen, somebody. We're not telling them because maybe they have the skills we have and we don't want to give up our leadership position. So maybe it is the format. Maybe, just maybe, there's a balance to be had between, I keep using what a friend we have in Jesus. I really like that hymn. Maybe there's a balance between what a friend we have in Jesus, right? And he's a man of his word, or you deserve it. there's a balance. We still talking about the same person. Jesus still deserves it. My hallelujah belongs to you. Okay, cool. You deserve it. All right, cool. We still talking about the same Jesus. It's just formatted differently. Our generation has witnessed the same oppressive forces, watch this, by a different name. It used to be Jim Crow. Then it was redlining. Then it was affirmative action. Now it's gentrification. It's the same thing. People who don't look like us don't want to live by us. They don't want our votes to count in their elections. So they marked off certain parts of Augusta. Let me just use the place we in. They marked off. Yes, sir. Say again. Why did you call it the others? Sure. I'll use the two neighboring counties here. Predominantly, Columbia County, right, is not very diverse. Is that? But Richmond County, on the other hand, is extremely diverse. So here's what I'm saying. They moved to Grovetown just so it could be their election. Then they price you out of living in Grovetown so they can make sure it's their election. That makes sense? It does, but I'm saying it's not their election. No. I'm saying it's an election. Sure. It is an election that has been skewed toward a certain group of people in a certain place and time. If we don't vote. Okay, if we don't vote. We have the same power if we vote. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're saying. That's verified. Right. They could have their elections with their own districts. So they knew if we keep it in one district, they could not do it. Now, I would recommend chapter 5 in the book. Chapter 5 is about black politics. Now, there is a number of things that can be said about black politics. And let me give you a quick picture. There's a stool on the cover of this book. If you look, four-legged stool. The oldest and strongest leg is the black church. Everything else has sprung out of that. Black colleges out of the basements and fellowship halls of black churches. Black families have been built and nurtured inside of black churches. Black politics have been fostered and grown inside of black church. Black church is the incubator for any greatly up until this point right now. Think about almost any great leader. They've at least come in contact with what institution? The black church. Even Malcolm X, what did his dad do? A preacher. There in Nebraska. Right? The seeds were planted. Obviously King but all the meetings, right? Because the preacher was insulated from the effects of getting the hours cut at work. Because I'm not dependent on Clark Construction to pay my bills. I'm dependent on the congregation. So I got to advocate for their needs and their wants. I'm not worried about getting my hours cut. So I'm insulated from that. I can say what I want to say. I can go down to City Hall and tell them my congregation of black people want justice, right? Without really a whole bunch of fear of retribution. Why? Because you can't really hurt my pockets. Now, you can bomb my house, which has happened, but you can't really hurt me economically. Does that make sense? Even so much, our generation has witnessed a rapid evolution. Watch this. Telephones used to be this. Give me, they had a switchboard. Give me Augusta 120, 128. Okay. Then they had the rotary phone. And I'm just going to use I love using my grandmother as an example. So My grandmother lived through all of this telephone evolution. I'll never forget this. She said, man, woo, look at this. And she was talking about a rotary phone. And I'm standing there like, what is so great about this? You got to stick your finger in. It's really awkward. But she loved that rotary phone. And she had a makeshift phone book on the back of this laundry room door, right? Katie, 70770, blah, blah, blah. Y'all remember those? Okay. I know we speaking the same language. I'm telling you, we're all speaking the same language. So she went from the rotary phone to the house phone, house rotary phone. She went from the rotary phone to this cordless phone. Ooh, you couldn't tell her nothing. As long as she put it on the base, she could walk outside and water her plants and still be on the phone. As long as she put it back on the base, she was good to talk for hours. Oh, I'm standing out. Grandmother, what do you do? I'm standing outside. You know, I'm watering my plants. I went to the mailbox, all on my phone. Just I don't have to stand by it or nothing. And then there was a cell phone, right? The car phone with that big suitcase, with the big bag and that little antenna on the end that you got to make sure you're in the right spot to get signal. And then the cell phone, that big block. I don't know if y'all watch wrestling, but Paulie Dangerously used to walk around with this big block cell phone, right? That type of thing. To now, your cell phone, which is a computer, you have a computer in your pocket. We lived through this evolution. So when people are like, it's not possible to grow a church, that doesn't make sense to us. How is it possible we got a computer in our pocket, but y'all can't get us to come to church? Now, is it because y'all have to be okay with us not having to physically come to the building? Maybe. Is it that if we do come to the building, there's got to be space for us to do something? Y'all ain't talking. No, watch this. I don't mean like just, I understand serving. I get it. Sweeping the floors and all serving. I get it. Teaching the kids and doing vacation, but I understand that. What I'm saying is there are some people in black churches who have been serving because they feel like it's a life sentence and not life service. They've been doing this 40 years, and they'll tell you, I've been doing this for 40 years. Great. What kind of impact is that having? Are you still able to reach kids that age? Go to the next slide. All right. Every generation has trust issues. The silent generation, they had government trust issues. The New Deal did a disservice coming out of the Depression. It did a disservice to black people. And the silent generation had to live through that. Boomers. Y'all have a distrust of the medical field. Have y'all ever heard a boomer? And if you said it, just go ahead and claim it. I wasn't even sick till I went to the doctor. I'm not taking no booster. They better be glad I took the first one. Y'all have a distrust of the medical field. Why? Because the generation before you was injected with all kinds of diseases. And y'all lived through that. Does that make sense? Gen X, y'all have issues, y'all have trust issues with authority figures, especially religious. Y'all remember Generation X. See, I knew you knew Jesus, Cowboys fan. We're gonna touch and agree after this. Listen. So check this out. So here it is. Y'all remember Jimmy Swaggart crying his eyes out. Oh, I have sinned. Y'all remember Tammy Faye Baker, crying her mascara off because they got caught in a scandal. Y'all remember the advent of prosperity gospel. If you turn around 7 times and send me $50, I can send you this oil. Peter Popoff and all these other folks, right? Y'all have a distrust for authority figures, especially religious ones, because they've let you down. And the generation before that, y'all had Daddy Grace, Father Divine, but they were on the fringe. They were, oh yeah, those are just weirdos. Millennials, we have a distrust, we have trust issues with corporate figures and government. We lived through the Cosby American dream being false. We grew up. Cosby Show on Thursday. Different world right after that. We just knew we're going to have an upwardly mobile black family. We might not want 5 kids, but you know what I mean. We're going to go to an HBCU, right? And life was just going to be so black and so beautiful. And the Cosby American dream was false. We went to the schools. We came home. And we lived through Enron. We lived through Y2K. Do y'all remember everybody buying bread and milk off the shelf? Y2K, the whole world was supposed to shut down. Government bailout to the wealthy, just like the silent generation. Billion-dollar airlines getting bailed out. And they got to think about forgiving my student loan debt. We have a distrust of the government. We have pursued to do all the things that we were told to, and it just didn't work. We were supposed to have these great jobs coming out of college. They weren't there. It was a recession. We were supposed to be able to buy this great 2-story home, and the housing market crashed. We had the first black president, and look who came right behind him. Generation Z, listen to me closely. They are struggling with the value of human life. They have been desensitized to violence to the point where if you want to go viral, do something violent. If y'all ever hear somebody yell out, "World Star," run. Something violent is going on because that's the way you make World Star. Okay. They're struggling with human life. And this conflict in Ukraine and the conflict in between Israel and Palestine is not helping, because you know what they're looking at on the internet? You know what they're looking at on IG? You know what's going viral? Dismembered children in the arms of their parents. And now these kids are at our house Monday to Saturday trying to figure out the value of human life. And then maybe they come on Sunday and they get ostracized because they're not wearing the right thing. Can you imagine? I'm trying to figure out the value of my own humanity and human life, and you're worried about, am I wearing sneakers or dress shoes? Do I smell nice enough to go to us's church? Next slide. All right. Ezra, chapter number 3, verse 12 and 13 is used inside of when wait your turn means no turn at all. Now, listen, here's the reason why. It's because I'm a preacher, okay? I like the Bible. The Bible has the answers to almost every single thing. Regardless of what we change the name of it to, the Bible has dealt with it in some way. And I'm going to show you right now that in Ezra chapter number 3, the generational divide and the intergenerational appreciation needed is right there in that text. Here's what happens. The younger generation of 40 and under, adults, have built the foundation of a brand new temple. They've invited all of the elders who've seen the glory of Solomon's temple. They've invited them out to this grand opening, this ribbon cutting. And do you know what happens? The young celebrate and rejoice because they have brought their elders out here who kept talking about how great it used to be. Man, we used to have some church at Solomon's Temple. Ooh, we used to have some church at Solomon's Memorial. Let me just use it that way. We used to have some church. It was growing. People were everywhere. We were impacting the community. We had community leaders. It was great. And now we've built this foundation, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Here's the reason why we had to. The other one had been burned. And it wasn't our fault. The older generation we invited out there, they're the reason why we had to build a new foundation. And we're trying to honor them by saying we still love God. We still want to honor God, honor the memory of this temple. And it's not even complete. It's just the foundation. And the young rejoiced and the old wept. And this is where we get our title. What's that noise? Because the young rejoiced and it was loud. And the old wept and lamented loudly. And a part of the reason why they lamented was guilt. The only reason we're standing here in front of a new temple foundation is because we failed. And they got to own that. But we're not condemning the elders. Please hear me say, millennials want to be a part of the Black church. We love God. We just have broken up with the church, and I'm trying my best to, one place at a time, make this makeup happen. We got to make up. And the only way we can do that is we got to be honest. Now, the young rejoiced, the old wept, and to the people outside of that area, you know what it sounded like? Noise. And that's how church sounds to some people. Because the old are weeping over what used to be. And the young are celebrating what could be. And everybody outside the church is confused because it's nothing but noise. And they got enough noise in their life as it is. They don't need to add another organization and institution that's got noise. It's enough noise in the world. Let me read this. Our generation feels slighted because of how much work. One generation feels slighted because of how much work they've put into the project. And preceding generations feel powerless because they could not actively build the temple back the way they remembered. They can't do it like they used to. The older people recalled a grander and more regal temple. Even though they came to lift Yahweh's name high, their minds could not help but glance back to what it once was. The reaction that they had was not wrong, just layered. What was not expressed was that their tears had double meaning. They had regret that the rebellion in them had brought them into captivity, which separated them from the grand temple, requiring another. And as translators, watch this. We are translators. We speak forward to Gen Z and Alpha because those are our kids and nephews and nieces. And we speak back to Gen X because those were our siblings, to boomers because those were our parents, to silent because those were our grandparents and great-grandparents. We stand. Generation X is the bridge, but we are the translators. And the best thing a translator can do is speak both languages. So we as translators, millennials have the chance to understand their tears while giving them the license for transparency, which will endear them to younger generations, forming the relationships older generations most desire. If you really ask, let me just ask y'all. Y'all are parents and grandparents. How much does it warm your heart to see your grandchildren? And how much more would it warm your heart to see your grandchildren functioning in ministry to the God we love and serve? And is that not more important than the way you're used to it being? Okay. Mm-hmm. And here's what I'm getting at. The set point is love. You love these people. You love these grandchildren. You don't want to go to hell by yourself. You don't want to go to heaven by yourself. Wherever it is you're going, that's the reason why I use both places, because everybody in church ain't going to heaven. But anyway, but you don't want to go to heaven by yourself. You want your family to be there, don't you? Then what's suffering through a praise and worship song when the price is their soul? What's being open to hearing the word of God preached a different way when the price is their soul? Because maybe the way you heard it when you got saved isn't going to reach them the same way. Is their soul worth it? Next slide. The title of the book, When Wait Your Turn Means No Turn at All, is because often those of us who are eager to serve in the black church, who are millennials, have been presented with that phrase, wait your turn. We got somebody that's been doing this for X amount of years. Now, we can put you on their team, but you're not really going to have an opinion. They don't care what your opinion is. You just own the team so they can say they got somebody young on the team. And that's not going to work for us because, like I said earlier, we've come up in an environment where we had a choice and our voice and choice mattered. Think about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is the one black movement that did not start where? In the church. Why? Because the people who started it are in a generation, bless you, that's unchurched. Now watch this. It was impactful. But how much more impactful could it have been if the fervent, effectual prayer of the righteous was availing on their behalf? How much more powerful could Black Lives Matter have been if it's undergirded with the wisdom from the civil rights fighters? Because we don't know. We don't know what actually having water hoses, we don't know what that feels like. We have keyboard courage. We're not getting dog sicked on us. Do you know how we play the dozens? Y'all play person to person. Y'all play face to face. We don't. You know where we do? I didn't even know what cyberbullying was. Cyberbullying? You used to get bullied in person. And if you didn't know a bully, you were a bully. Taking somebody's lunch money. He's laughing. He probably took some lunch money. But anyway, here are some truths about millennials and Gen Z. Do you guys have any questions? I'm sorry. Do you guys have any questions? All right. Let's walk through this. We're almost done. Millennials want mentorship, but want value placed mutually on mentor and mentee. We do not want one-sided mentorship. We are not there to simply sit at your feet and listen to you. We want you to value what we have to say too. Because something we have to say might actually help. But if you are not open to listening to us, we're not going to say anything. Eventually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to leave. And here will be the narrative. They didn't have any stick-to-itiveness. They weren't faithful. Right? Oh, they didn't want to serve for real. Why? Because they didn't want to do it my way. We both understand the unifying force of the black church. Both groups are looking for impactful identity. Watch this. And we are comfortable that it doesn't include a title. Can you tell me who the head of BLM is? Can you tell me who the head of Black Lives Matter is? They didn't have a central leader. There was no MLK. It had impact. We would rather, watch this. We know as millennials, this is the translator piece. We know inside of denominations, they give badges for like how many years of service. Do y'all do that? I don't know if CME does. Y'all have like, we served as an usher for X amount of years. There's an award for that. We have pins, right? Yeah, 30 years. They have usher convention and like, oh, this person served for 30 years. Or pastors have served for 30, 40, 50 years, and they give them all kinds of awards. Now, here's the thing. We would much rather not have a title and have impact. We would rather see things get done without you having to call our name. And I know you think we want all of the shine. I know that's kind of a millennial thing. Like, oh, it's all about me. Look at me. It's really not so. Here's the thing. Yes, we crave attention. We do. Yes, we want that affirmation. We want, hey, you're doing a good job. Yes, we do. But we're human. Everybody wants. I don't care what generation you're in. Everybody likes a good, hey, you're doing a good job. Now, can we admit that in Black church, we don't give many of those? I'm sorry. Can we admit that in Black church, we don't give many of those? You get fired every week and come right on back the next week. Gen Z is looking for a safe place to be in relationship and then learn from us. They feel like it's our job to teach them. Here's the reason why I don't know is an answer Gen Z uses, and they think it's okay. Now, millennials, we're the last generation in that I don't know was not an applicable answer. If my father asked me something, I said, well, I don't know. You don't know. Now we're gonna have an issue. Because his thought was, hold on, I'm paying for school. I'm asking you something you don't. There's Encyclopedia Britannicas over here. You don't know. Well, it wasn't just I don't know. I don't have the drive to go find out. Gen Z, God help us. My daughter's in Gen Z. Gen Z feels it is our job to teach them. And to be honest with you, we've had the slogans, each one, teach one, right? That's not a Gen Z creation. That's not something they came up with. Mentorship is not new. Gamaliel had Paul. Moses had Joshua, right? Jesus had 12. Everybody had a mentor. Elisha was mentored by Elijah. It's how it works. Gen Z is looking to avoid the assumption of you ought to know or you ought to know better. The kid that runs up and steps on this, you ought to know better. Somebody should have told you better. Well, if the parent doesn't know, then how can the child be held accountable for something they don't know and the parent doesn't know? Millennials and Gen Z are not Samuel. Quick story. Yeah. Quick story. No, the Georgia game starts at 12. Trust me. Samuel is Hannah's prayed for son. Samuel hears a voice calling Samuel, Samuel. He rushes into Eli and says, Eli, did you call me? Goes the first time. Eli said, no, I didn't call you. Go to bed. He comes back a second time. Eli, did you call me? He said, no, go back to bed. He says, if you hear it again, say, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. Goes back, he hears it, says, speak, Lord, your servant hears. And now this is his call story. God is now calling Samuel to be priest and prophet there inside of Israel. Here's what I'm saying about millennials and Gen Z. We are not Samuel. We are not coming back the second or third time. If we come to you to establish relationship or mentorship and you send us away, we are not coming back. Again, that goes back to being valued. And I understand. Part of the notion is, why should we value you? You don't have any money, right? Isn't that what Black church thinks? Man, these young folk, they ain't got no money yet. Yet. They don't yet. But if you grow this person, when they do, you know what they're going to do? They're not just going to give of their treasure. They're going to give of their time. Why? Because you invested in them. Next slide. All right. Each group has valid feelings. Each group has different expectations. Now, here's the segments. There are the weepers, there's the rejoicers, there's the counterfeit criers, and the listeners. Watch this. I want to highlight counterfeit criers. Counterfeit criers are the folks who never saw Solomon's temple and were too old to help build the new one, because the captivity lasted too long. So when they would have been of age to help build, they were in captivity. And by the time they came back and it was time to build the new foundation, they were too old to help. So they're crying, but it's counterfeit because they never even been in Solomon's temple. The struggle for each generation evolves because the struggle should not be the same if the previous generation has been effective. Here's the reason why we so spoiled. Y'all did too well. Boomers, y'all did too well. Gen X, y'all did too well. And then y'all said, we're not going to do to our kids. We're going to give them what we didn't have. Okay, then cool. Now you mad because we spoiled. The shared struggle informs intergenerational understanding because it is just a name. The shared struggle, we have a shared struggle. We're still oppressed people in the United States of America. But the worst trick that's being played on millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha is making it seem like we live in what's being called a post-racial America. Now, we know that's not true. But if nobody's educating, if nobody's telling Gen Z or Alpha, hey, look, this is an old trick. Think about it this way. When other groups of people, when the Jews have an issue, do they go talk to Jerry Seinfeld about what they should do? When Hispanics have an issue, do they go talk to Paul Abdul or? No, they don't go talk to entertainers. But when Black people have an issue in our community, who do they go talk to? Entertainers. Sports figures. There's nothing wrong with informed sports figures or entertainers. But if we're talking about politics, we got plenty of Black political scientists who could be asked. I'm married to one of them. We got plenty of government officials we could ask. I got no problem with a rapper advertising so people go out and vote. But you need some informed people about voter suppression and the tactics to help along the way. Do y'all see how this is both and not either or? We need both your wisdom and our energy. We need both your experience and our vigor. Y'all not having any more children. We got a chance. And if we don't have a both and, if there's not an intergenerational connection and understanding, here's how men, older men, here's how you can identify, oh, that little guy is something else. My grandmother used to say it this way, mannish. That little guy is something else. He mannish. And the only reason you can spot it is you either were or still trying to be mannish. I'm going to turn my back. Ladies, The reason why you're so strict about what a woman wears at the church is probably two reasons. Number one, the way you were judged about what you wore, or two, you can't fit whatever it is she's wearing anymore. Because if you could, you might try to put it on. Next slide. Amen. Here it is. Our history that we idolize rather than appreciate it and glean from it. The history that we idolize. Man, we used to have some church. Man, we used to have some church. And we're experiencing it in our denomination. There used to be 100,000 people come into the Congress of Christian Education. Wherever it was in the United States. 50, 75, 100,000 people. We can't get 30,000 people. And they're still booking huge arenas. Why? Because they're still holding on to this history they've idolized. Man, we used to pack this place out, and C.A.W. Clark and blah, blah, blah used to preach. And all those folks they talking about are dead. Or at least 80. We have to be able to glean from history, but not idolize it and then stifle the organization and the institution. Everything old is not extinct. A good hymn still warms the sinner's heart. The gospel still works. Communion is still important. Hearing "Take Me to the Water" automatically gets our brains to think baptism. It still works. Talking about Jesus still works. So everything old is not extinct. A good choir, not choir, choir, if you got a good mass choir, oh man. Everything old ain't extinct. Let them march in. All these churches, if you look on the internet, all these churches are having old school Sundays, right? Old school Sunday, big hats. That means we still cherish that history, the big hats and the choir marching in, right? 2 deacons and 1 chair. Devotional service. Oh, man. The big choir. Reverend in a big robe with the crosses, And everything new is not greater. Just because it's new, it doesn't mean it's better. As a millennial, I'm here to admit everything new ain't better. All the lights and smoke machines at church, it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make the gospel any better. It's new, but it doesn't make it any better. We cannot ignore those outside who don't need more noise. Next slide. All right. On a track. This is how many? I think he's got 1 or 2 slides left. Okay, go to the next slide. I'm going to explain one thing off of that last one. So watch this. Go to the next one. Here we go. This is what I've been dying to get to the entire time. This is it. 5 L's of reaching millennials and younger. The very first one, license yourself with biblical and religious vision. It does not have to be the way somebody taught it to you for it to be correct. Give yourself the license to see the Bible differently. The next one, do life with us graciously. Do life with us. See us at the ball game. See us at a restaurant. In the bank or in the waiting room at the doctor's office. Everybody, the doctor's office, they give you an appointment time, right? Then you're sitting in there for how long? Golly. Anyway, I'm sorry. See, that's a shared struggle. We all share that. Lift God with humility. Now watch this. We lift God and we level with people. Here's what that means. Nobody in here is righteous enough to look down on anybody else. Because everybody used to be something. And just because this person is that or is in that space right now does not make it okay for you to judge them, because we lift God. And when we lift God, we see how horrible we are. There ought not be a single Christian that lifts God and has the opportunity to look down on somebody else. We level with people with empathy because we used to be somewhere. Last but not least, and this is most important, love on us with honesty and reality. You got to tell us. Tell us who you used to be. You're not going, listen to me. You will not lose currency. You won't lose ground with us in relationship by telling us who you used to be and what you used to do. You won't. You'll actually endear yourself to us because now we know you being authentic. This is the reason why some millennials and Gen Z don't come to church. Because all the biggest liars we know are in church. And this is what I mean by that. We grew up with y'all at the house. Y'all talk all that craziness about other people smelling like alcohol or drinking. We know what's in the cabinet at the house. We grew up with y'all. Does that make sense? You down on somebody because they smoke. But we've been at the house with y'all when your friends come by to play dominoes and spades and it get cloudy. Am I making sense? So now when y'all tell us, oh, y'all need to come to church. For what? Now, if inside a relationship you reach out and say, hey, listen, man, I've been there. I understand. I've been there. I understand. I'm praying with and for you. Here's what helped me, right? Here's what helped me. Maybe it'll help you. And if you ever really need some help, I didn't say nothing about coming to church. At this point, I'm doing life with you. I'm doing relationship with you. You know what'll mess around and happen? You'll look up at Williams Memorial, and that person that you're now mentoring will be in the building. And they won't come by themselves. It's a first century church model. Somebody told somebody. And the church grew daily. Next slide. All right. This is the very last thing. And this is the most fun part. This is the most interaction. Y'all know the story about the well talk with Jesus and this woman at the well. All right. Here we go. What is wrong with this woman at the well? She's a Samaritan. Let's start there. Now, why is that a problem? Thank you. They're cousins, but they clash. Y'all got cousins like that. Amen. Y'all got cousins like that. How would you teach this to younger people? Okay, here we go. Jesus is walking along with his buddies, right? Jesus walking along with his buddies. The Bible says he had need to go through Samaria. Now, that don't make good sense because good Jews go around Samaria and beat the sand off their feet to make sure they don't bring Samaritan sand into Judea or Galilee. What also is wrong with this woman? While he's talking to her, he says, go get your husband. And she says, I don't have one. And he says, you've already had how many? 5. And now normally we've heard, oh my gosh, this woman, she had 5 husbands and she's shacking. Woo! Shacking up. Now, what we don't say is in that culture, she didn't have no choice. She couldn't divorce nobody. She couldn't marry nobody. So either all 5 or 6 of these men have taken advantage of her, or we've been looking at it at a wrong angle. Because we've demonized this woman. She's shacking up. She got 5 husbands. When it wasn't even her choice. She couldn't marry nobody. She couldn't divorce him. She was a woman. She was already a second-class citizen. What was she going to do? But watch this. She starts a citywide revival. Now, this is my favorite part. She goes to men first because she got an audience with them. Obviously, you know. And And once she says, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. The men went out to see Jesus at this well. Now, my suspicion is they went out there to see whether or not he was snitching. They wanted to know whether or not he was calling names. Because if he told her everything she had ever done, he probably might have been out there telling everything they did. Now, once they figured out he wasn't snitching, they went back and got their wives and kids and brought them and said, hey, come preach to us. This is the best part. He's a Jew. He spends 2 nights in Samaria with Samaritans, eating their food. And the disciples are trying to figure out Jesus. Now think about it. Y'all know the disciples. Big mouth Peter, James and John walking up there. And somebody has to say, Peter, you got all that mouth. Why don't you go over there and tell Jesus, stop talking to this woman? You know she's Samaritan. He's not even supposed to be talking to women in public. That makes sense? Giving yourself the license to look at the Bible differently. I didn't say anything that was false contextually, culturally, or biblically. But that's not the way you've heard it preached. Next slide. Here are the lingering questions as we leave this place, but never God's presence. What is at risk if we don't decipher the noise? If we do not decipher the noise, our churches, associations, and denominations will die. They will die. Y'all want to know why multicultural? They not multicultural. They white pastored black and brown churches. You want to know why they're growing? It's because they're open to now. Even with a doctorate, I could never be senior pastor at National Hills on Washington Road. First Baptist. Who? Oh no. We would never have you, pastor. Oh no. Especially not National Hills. It's right across from one of the bastions of whiteness, Augusta National. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh no. What will Black America look like with a weakened or extinct Black church? What will Black America look like with a weakened or extinct Black church? And are you willing to sing your part to make this noise into a symphonic message? Your part, my part. Are we willing to do what we can? We can't do it all. But what it is we can do that. If it's just being nicer to new people at church, do it. Do it. If it's stopping somebody from turning somebody away from church because of the way they look or smell, do that. Because it's just that serious. These aren't bodies at stake. There are souls in the balance. Next slide. That's all I got. If you would like to purchase a copy of the book, I will sign them. They are only $20 a piece. I've had a great time. If you guys have any questions or comments, please ask away. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Here thank you so much, ma'am. In the back of the book, there is a list. It's set up like the 10 Commandments. They are called the Millennial Mandates. There are 10 separate things. The number 10 in the Bible marks perfection and in this sense, we work together in execution of these mandates, then God can better perfect us as a people, right? So here are a few of them. Think of grace as a boomerang you receive when it's given. You got to boomerang. Think of grace as a boomerang that you get as you fling it. I have to extend grace to people with the expectation of grace coming back. But if I'm not gracious to other people, I can't have an expectation of grace coming back. Talk with us honestly so that we can translate to other generations accurately. If you tell us what your struggles are, if you tell us what your concerns are, we have the ability to be able to translate that, right? Here's my favorite. Realize you can't lose your race based on how we run, but we all lose the race if you don't pass us the baton. There's an exchange zone on most tracks. If you ever watch the 4x100, there's an exchange zone. And if you don't make that exchange inside that zone, the entire team gets disqualified. You're not going to lose the race based off of our methods being different than yours. But if you never give us the opportunity to lead these organizations and institutions, we'll all lose. Anything else? Questions? Comments? Don't have comments on the, no comments on the, I guess who, okay, great. All right, thank you.